Happy Bringling. Myself Anshav Jain, founder of Bringle Academy, would like to thank all those 150 plus daily learners who are going through rigorously hashtag 21 days business sustainability challenge on our YouTube channel Bringle Talks or joining us directly from the link bringleacademy.com/workshop/139. Here is a quick recap of Pearls of Wisdom from our last Bringle Blended meetups on Six Sigma DMAC methodology. Teji Singh Sethi mentioned that Six Sigma is a structured way of eliminating the cost with its importance on leadership ready programs for any change in the organization. Hitesh Sanghvi gave lot of in-depth perspective on the various techniques and tools of Six Sigma for startups, small businesses and even corporates. He spoke about fail fast, fail first to help you know your strengths and weaknesses very quickly. Karunesh Prasad emphasized on focusing other solutions rather than usage of complex tools. His classic statement was don't go with AK-47 to kill a mosquito. Money. Strategic partner Bringle mentioned that defining the problem statement is very crucial for the success of every startup. Post ideation, the emphasis has to develop a lean startup with Six Sigma level of processes. DMADV is an important aspect which helps entrepreneurs to develop their minimum viable product right at the ideation stage. I would also request all the businesses to enroll at bringleacademy.com/course/business sustainability and upload your pitch deck to pitch in front of our cross-border investors to achieve your billion-dollar dream. Do subscribe our YouTube channel Bringle Talks and hit the bell for the next live session. Keep bringling, keep growing.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy Bringling. We at Bringle team, along with Women Lines, Solworks and Poonam Foundation, would like to welcome all the participants at Bringle Blended Meetups platform and all those people who are watching it live on our YouTube channel Bringle Talks. Just a quick recap on Pearls of Wisdom from the last live session on lean methodology and waste elimination. John from Singapore stressed upon lean technology, increasing the customer value, and talked about that lean is the management system which covers entire gamut of the business. Lean education is going to be the future of various industries. Kuldeep Chawla mentioned about that waste of talent is the big area of concern in most of the organizations today, and that is getting added as one of the waste identified waste within the organizations. He also called lean process as a habit and a culture instead of a project. It is going to be a continuous improvement process. I was also a speaker yesterday. So what I was talking about is more focus on going to from cash burn models to unit economics model, which is going to be built up on the lean methodology. If we can have the right culture, better visual controls, and importance of first time right, we can reduce our costs significantly, and sometimes can be as low as much as 50 to 80%, while improving the efficiency by doubling it almost. With this, I would like to mention about today's cross-border hashtag 21 days business sustainability challenge is Six Sigma DMAC methodology. I would also like to request entrepreneurs, businesses, and all those startups from all across the globe to upload their pitch deck on our community page www.bringleacademy.com/course/business sustainability. There is a there is a 1 week live pitching which is organized from 27th April onwards in front of our cross-border investors. So with this, I, Anshav Jain, founder of Bringle, would like to request Rajshri to please introduce our today's speakers.
So this is Rajshri Rajshekhar, founder of Pune Foundation. So we work on the gender neutrality in organizations and in the open society. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Hitesh Sanghvi. He's a management consultant, CMMI, high maturity lead appraiser and instructor. Hitesh Sanghvi is a managing director of QNIX, which is a CMMI institute partner. He is a CMI certified lead instructor and high maturity lead appraiser for CMMI development and CMI service for version 1.3 and version 2. He has 30 years of experience, software quality and management consulting in areas like ISO series, competency model, agile and balanced scorecard, more than 200 plus CMMI appraisals and 100 plus audits in other frameworks in more than 20 countries. He has consulted, evaluated, and appraised several high maturity best practices for organizations like Syngenti, Philips, John Deere, Philips, GIR, Altec, Vancouver, TCS, Bayer, ESI, and more. He is an avid scholar and researcher in management and quality. A second speaker, Karunesh Prasad from Singapore, transformation and change management. Talent and transformation expert, speaker and entrepreneur, interim CHRO after a long stint in corporate world working in geographies like India, Singapore, Europe and USA in human resources, Lean Six Sigma, post-merger integration and culture transformation with companies like GE and RPG Enterprise. He formed Change ETL in 2014 to help organizations transform their business successfully. Since then, he has been working with clients globally, supporting business transformation, HR transformation, process improvement, design thinking, and post-merger integration. Our third speaker, Tejinder Singh Sethi Kaur. She is a director at Capgemini with more than 24 years of experience. She has worked with global customers across US, UK, APAC, EMEA regions playing varied roles, global delivery management, pre-sales, transition manager, test manager, quality champion. She is a certified Six Sigma black belt, has delivered more than 40% day of Six Sigma training, mentored and certified 50 green belt project. She has done her MBA in finance and NMIMS. I welcome all the speakers to the show. Thank you very much. Over to Ansha. Anshu, we can't speak.
Thank you, Rajshri. I think it's a technology world, so it has still not adapted the auto mute on, unmute options till now. So, but I think thanks, Rajshri, for introducing the today's wonderful speakers. And I would like to request Teji. Teji, if you can just give a little brief understanding about your experience with respect to different businesses and corporates, and how Six Sigma DMAC methodology is going to be very, very important. I mean, it has been there for a while, but now in post-COVID scenario, how it is going to impact a lot, impact more probably.
Hi, everybody. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Teji.
Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all across the globe. This is my first experience to speak at a global event, and I'm very excited about it. And thank you, Rajeshri, for taking me last minute and having me part of this event. Um, Thanks for the introduction. Also, I just want to say I was introduced to Six Sigma way back in 1998 when in the Patni days, GE was the first to have rolled out Six Sigma across all their customers, all their vendors, in fact, their vendors and suppliers, they made it mandatory. Uh, we had a joint training which was done by one of the Wipro consultants, which was a joint training to all the vendors, TCS, Patni together. For me, it was a very unique experience to get trained by one of the leaders in Six Sigma. And it was a very transformation for me personally, having attended this training. If I look at Six Sigma as a methodology, it's a very structured problem solving approach, I must say. And I'm not sure how many would have read more about Six Sigma, but we all know Six Sigma actually originated in Motorola, but G as a company was the one who promoted Six Sigma and brought it in the world map globally, which is where it gained so much of voice across different companies. So if I have to look at Six Sigma as a methodology, as I mentioned, it's a very structured way of problem solving, which can help you to reduce your cost by eliminating a lot of defects in the quality of the product that you bring about. And there are different approaches in Six Sigma. One is a DMAIC approach, and the second is a DMA-DV approach. So any companies who are having existing processes and would like to bring an improvement within their existing processes, you can follow a DMAIC approach, which talks about define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. A very structured approach to do problem solving for your existing processes, whether it is your manufacturing processes, it's your IT processes, services across industries. You could use this to bring improvement in your processes. However, if you're looking at creating a new product or designing something from scratch, there is another methodology called DMA-DV, which is define, measure, analyze, design, and validate. So you should use this to do more of a prototype, a POC, design it, validate it, and then go for an implementation. And G were the pioneers to have implemented DMA-DV. And if you would have seen some of the improvements record of G way back from 1995 onwards, they had brought huge cost savings just by bringing Six Sigma as a way of working across all of their business lines. Jack Welch was one of the promoters, and the way they implemented is bring this change. The first thing is bring it across all leaders. And one more thing which I would say when G implemented is, before bringing any improvement, they also brought about a change acceleration program, which is very popular in G, where before bringing any big change, they run through their leadership into a change acceleration program. The objective of this program is to ensure that the change that bring is very smooth implementation across their organizations, where every leadership has all the buying in support of this change, and that's when they get into the implementation phase. So if I have to say in very layman language of how do you look at DMAIC? So I'm sure we all look at problems. We all have problems surrounding our workplace, wherever we are working. And if I have to simplify the DMAIC in a very layman language, a define is talking about, please define your problem. Articulate what is your problem in a problem statement in 4 to 5 lines. So when we look at define, it is what is your problem. When you say measure, obviously when we have a problem, it is important to quantify the problem that you have. And that's what we talk about in the measure phase. So in simplified language, you have a problem. How much is your problem is what you talk about in your measure phase. There are various tools available in each of these phases. I will not go into the details of the tool part, but I'm making it very simplified for others to understand this in a very simplified language. So measure is how much is your problem. We come to the next phase, which is analyze, which is why is the problem existing, is where you start analyzing the problem and try to identify, if we have the problem, where is it originating for, what are the factors that are contributing to these problems. And the next one is improve, which is you have defined your problem, what is your problem, you know how much is your problem, you have analyzed where is my problem coming from, what are the factors that are contributing for. In improve, you identify various factors or various improvement solutions that if you implement will minimize your problem. Okay, so that's what you do in your improve phase. So you identify the improvement solutions, implement these improvement solutions, and go back and measure your problem again. Has that helped to improve your problem statement? Has it made impact to reduce your problem? And lastly is the control, which is the most important phase. And I'm sure we all agree. We always bring improvements, but the challenge is to sustain the improvement, right? And that's where you need to have control measures which are monitored regularly to ensure the process does not slip back and you re-see the problems which you have actually simplified or improved. So that's in a very small, very layman's language. My attempt to define a DMAIC methodology. I hope that was useful to all of you.
That's a very wonderful explanation, Teji, and I just want to add out here specifically the sustainability part, the control aspect which you have mentioned, because most of the organizations, they become very happy, and whenever it comes to the organizations, wherein most of the solutions comes from the subject matter experts, the operations team, the delivery team, and they feel that because we have the solutions, it will continue to work like that. But the only one phase, which is the control phase, can actually jeopardize the entire solutioning, and it will immediately go back to the the earlier scenario once the probably those set of people starts changing.
Absolutely. You said it very rightly, which is where I mentioned that uh, reaching till the improved control is easier. The difficult part is the sustainability, and that's where as part of control measures, you identify the process owners who will monitor, review the progress on a continuous basis and ensure it does not go back to the problem statement again. And that's where only when you sustain that is when you will be ensured of having continuous quality improvement on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Madi, do you have a question for her? I think
Yeah. Thanks, Teji. Thanks for that explanation. It was helpful. I actually work with a lot of startups, and being a mentor, I help them on a lot of stages of ideation. One important such stage is more of creating the minimum viability product. And the expectation of this minimum viability product is to achieve minimum viable business. So this is the basic expectation from the viability product to the viable business. Now, most of these startups try to slip on after this viability product. Now, I would like to understand your views about this method, which you have just explained, like define, measure, analyze, design, and validate in perspective of a startup, and how startups can use this method to bring out the best prototype during the minimum validation phase, so that the idea can be frozen and it can be ascertained a value and it can go to the next level of commercialization. If you could throw some light on this, it would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Teji, just want to add out here. Just consider that these startups have practically no idea about Six Sigma.
Right.
Also, they do not have anything available right now. So maybe that is what Madi is actually talking about specifically for those startups.
Right. Yeah. So basically, when you're identifying these prototypes, my understanding is typically the startups would have at least more than one designs which they are trying to validate, right? So what is important is one of the techniques which I have actually used when we are doing a DMA DV, and there could be some other which some of the other groups could use, is you identified the critical to quality features from a customer standpoint, and the entire approach of Six Sigma, both DMAIC and DMA DV, is very focused on the customer, right? It's a outside in approach versus an inside out approach, right? While we look at ISO CMM is all talking about here are the standard processes, these are the best practices. All due respect to all of them, they are good. They are more focusing of if you do this, this is what you will achieve. However, Six Sigma is more of an outside in approach where customer is the center of everything that you do. So let's say if you're doing a viable product, let's say if you're doing in the COVID example, if I have to take the very very relevant example is manufacturing of ventilators, right? Who is my customer? Identify who is your customer here. My customer is a doctor. My customer is the patient who is receiving the service, the doctor, because he will be operating this ventilator unit, right? Now, if you do a very clear voice of customer, both with these two customers, what is critical to them when they're looking at this as an end product, you define these critical to qualities and you give an impact to each of these attributes. Once you have your viable product design, you rate each of the design against each of these critical to quality and look at a combined score. You may look at a weighted average score on this design. You look at this combined score across each of these viable designs that you have done. It will help you to take an informed decision. Obviously, cost will also be one of the factors, which is more very important for the startup, while the product features are important from the customer standpoint, is something you can look at while doing this analysis. Having done that, the score will help you, enable you to see which is the design which is more relevant and which you should be taking forward, whether it is in terms of impact to the customer, which is both to the patient and the doctor, and the viability from the cost standpoint and the profitability standpoint for the startup. So that's a very good approach that you can take forward when you have to finalize your design. That's where your validation, verification, your DMA, DV comes in. You validate it with your prototype. So while you will be still at a prototype stage, you will be able to validate it and see that it is worth taking out of the multiple options that you have, which one is more viable to take forward.
Thank you, Teji. That was very helpful. Hope the entrepreneurs have taken a note of how they have to change the approach from outside in perspective of connecting to the problem and bring out maximum flexibility at the minimum viability stage. Thank you for that.
I just want to share one example, which, I'm in Ahmedabad for a training on, sales and sales. So we had this professor who was actually talking about, we had to create a sales strategy for selling of toffee, the orange toffees that the chocolates that we have had in our childhood days. And the professor kept insisting, we created great strategies. And the professor kept insisting, please focus on your customer. And we kept thinking the customer was, the dealers who we would be supplying, the shops where the stocks would be held. And it was real, a very different moment when the professor said, who is your customer? And we didn't even think the customer was the child. How are you going to have the child look at the various options on the shelf and say, this is the one that I want to buy? That's how the deep customer impact we have to think about.
Oh, thank you. It was a very great example. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teji, and for such a beautiful example. With this, I would like to request Hitesh. Hitesh, if you can, quickly give a little brief about your varied industries experience and how quality management, Six Sigma, CMMI, various aspects can be used in building up the quality organization.
Lot of experience since last 30 years. But overall, if we are working on a Six Sigma project or any other models, I do a detailed talk with the director or the CEO or the technical word is sponsor. What they want to achieve at a business level, what is the business benefit that they want? And do a SWOT analysis in terms of what are their needs, what are their wants, and what are their greeds. Because every organization, they have some needs, there are some wants, and they're greedy about something. The greed can be anything, right? And what are the constraints? So if they have a 5-year, at least a 5-year strategy and a vision and mission, we look backwards to see that if you don't achieve this at the end of 5 years, what could be the barriers? If I take myself 5 years from now, and if I say that, well, I failed on my goals, which were defined today after 5 years, so I would see what would be the problems. Now, each of these problems or constraints or blockages or entry barriers, whatever we call them, I will focus on them to minimize. And that's where I'll start using any of these Six Sigma tools or analytical tools. And I'll also look at my opportunities and strengths and try to maximize. The measurement should, whatever we measure in an organization or in our life, it should be looking at what is the objective and the goal. I've seen a lot of organizations, they are measuring a lot of things, but they really find it very difficult to articulate why I'm measuring this and what is the advantage and where this measurement takes me, whether it takes me towards the goal or I'm measuring for some short-term targets. So that's where when we look at, coming to the topic, DMAIC, we also talk to the customers about what is within their control and what is out of their control. If at all there is some processes which are out of control, we should focus on improving them, because that is called management. A simple definition of management would be your ability and competency to control that is uncontrollable. And we look at those uncontrolled factors, we look at the parameters or find out the variables which are the properties of that particular process. Then we start measuring that, and then we apply Six Sigma. So problem definition is very important when we are talking of DMAIC. And that's where the first D of DMAIC is define. Define what you want to do, define your problem. I've got a brief slide, and I'll use that. I'll upload the slide so that it will be easy to okay. Is this visible?
Yes, Hitesh.
Right. So if you look at the first define part, it is define the opportunity. And well, in a language, in a problemless language, everything is an opportunity. So you can define the opportunity behind the problem, and you can have various tools. It can be cost of poor quality, or voice of customer, or voice of stakeholder. And you have to define a project charter, which basically talks about what is your vision about the project of improvement, what you want to improve, what problems you want to avoid or eliminate. We also use goal question metrics method, where you have a goal. To achieve that goal, you will ask some questions. Those questions will also tell you what are the problems and what are the opportunities. And then you start measuring whatever are the relevant parameters. And then comes the process. And then comes the primary metric, which says this is what we have to control. So the first part is problem definition or an opportunity definition. So once I was talking about this, and a sales manager told me that, well, in sales, we have to always increase, right? We have to increase our sales, we have to increase our profits. Why do I apply control charts to sales? Because I don't want to control this process. I want this process to be uncontrolled. So basically, what you measure is about definition. So then we had a long talk where we discussed that, there is something called cycle to sales or turnaround time or response times. Those things can be controlled. By controlling some variables, you can always maximize other variables. So you need to understand the correlation between various variables and the processes. Some processes which are happening early in the life cycle, and if you control its parameters, using a process performance model or a correlation between, the goals, then you can always control some of the processes which are coming down the line. So coming from definition to a measurement, you have to, as my colleague said in a previous presentation, critical to quality CTQ requirements. So it can be what is basically required by the customer. That is your critical to quality. Then there is critical to cost, critical to growth, critical to time. So there are many parameters which can be critical. You need to use some techniques like PUG matrix or PUG diagrams and identify which one would be the most critical for you and put it into a priority, and then try to maximize or minimize them. And you have other methods like FMEA or DFMEA, failure mode effect analysis, etc., which we can discuss whenever we have some more time. So once you have define and measure, and then you start analysis of the root causes. There are various methods for root cause analysis. It can be, and there are statistical methods like histogram, box plots, ANOVA, MANOVA, hypothesis testing, regression testing, process performance models, box plots. There are dozens of techniques available in statistics, which can be rightly used to, depending upon what is the relevance of the metric and the type of metric. Your analysis should basically look at which part of your business life cycle is uncontrolled. You can control, the parts which are already doing well. But let's say in a call center, receiving a call and the wait time, many times we have a call and say you are in queue for X minutes and your number is Y. So those are the business processes which you may lose your customer if at all you don't control those particular type of sub processes. And when you talk of analyze, you have to analyze not only your process but a sub process or a sub process, because one weak link in the entire process may cost you something very big in terms of your business. And after analysis, you move to improve. You need to plan very early with the sponsor, as I said, what do you want to improve and how much you want to improve. You need to have targets, short-term, medium term and long-term targets in terms of which variable or which parameter you want to improve. It can be an output improvement or it can be outcome improvement, because you can't measure everything. An outcome is a feeling, a satisfaction or happiness. And outputs can be products, tangible things, right? So you need to identify what exactly you want to improve. And then you come to the control factor. You might get some random improvements, but that would be just by chance. And you can use some techniques like hypothesis testing, or there are various other techniques to see whether correlation is correct. And then you have to control the activity by sustaining it. So in case when you want to have a long-term control, you should use appropriate statistical techniques. It can be control charts, or it can be various other methods by which you can ensure that the process remains within its control limits and it gives you sustainable results. We can measure that by using capability analysis or CP values. So this was in brief that I could talk about DMAIC, and I don't know if you have a few more minutes, then I can continue, else we can look at another chat.
Hitesh, I have a question out here. I think, see, the way you have explained DMAIC methodology is pretty brilliant, and I think one slider gave a broader perspective of the 5 stages with different tools in it. What I would want to understand, and I think I want to first of all, thanks for sharing, specifically the sales cycle part of it, because Six Sigma is considered to be not very useful for the sales and marketing processes. However, I mean, I myself is, my first project was actually in the marketing department. And we have got them 5% more cost benefits onto that, which means almost that time it was 100 crores business. and we have given them around 5 crores of profitability around that, and with a lot of customer changes and aspects into it. Fortunately or unfortunately, this project was done almost like 16 years ago, and till now in that organization that is the only project in marketing, sales and marketing, which is still used as a case study in that organization. So the way you brought up the point that while you will not want to have a control, you don't want to have a control on your sales figures, but to make it more uncontrollable, it is not uncontrollable. Basically, it is more of a tipping point, or more and more revenues they're talking about. You have to have a control on your processes. Like you talked about order to cash, billing cycles and things like that. Now, my question to you is that Six Sigma is considered to be a big jargon when it comes to sales and marketing, business people, and even in the normal startups domain. What our question, and right now our majority of the audience which is watching this daily challenge is basically from the startups or the SME segment, wherein probably 1 or 2 founders are sitting working. There could be some 8 to 10 people, or there could be 40 to 50 member team. Now, what I am trying to understand is that how Six Sigma is useful for an entrepreneur to understand the concepts of Six Sigma right from early on, and how can they deploy it individually within their organization even before starting.
Okay, I've had opportunities to work with some startups and entrepreneurs, and I do remember the days when I did one about 30 years back. So the teams sometimes are very small. Let's look at the scenario. It's not like a big organization. You start with like 1 person or 2 people or 4 investors, and they first of all need to understand themselves, what they want to do. Right? If you get funds and you run around with something, so you should have a very clear vision in terms of your market, your product, and it may change over time, which is not a good thing, but well, in an early stage, you define something and improve it incrementally. They need to understand, I'll repeat what I said before, that if you have a 5-year dream that I'm going to make it, let's say a 25 crore company, a very like in 5 years, simple target. If at all I don't make it, what would be the reasons? You are going to draw a fishbone diagram backwards, that well, reason can be A, B, C, D, etc. In the 4th year, what would it be? In the 3rd year, what would it be? The problem that I face in the 2nd year will create problems in the 3rd year. So there is instead of result engineering, for some time, they have to do reason engineering. Why I would fail. So this is called failure analysis. This is perceived failure analysis. At the same time, they should also do a success analysis, because you should know your strengths. That is the first part. Okay. Once you know your strengths, probably, failure analysis will be second. Once you have done with that, you need to identify the business process that you are getting engaged, and which part of the business process is most critical, and identify sub process of that. So a weakest link can pull the whole ship down. And if they identify that difficult part of their sub process, they have to work on that. And that's what they have to measure. And that's where they can apply. Now, this is the way we can simply explain in a non-technical language to a startup businessman or a startup entrepreneur. Work on those things, measure that, look at the behavior, because in the early stages, the behavior of their process is the behavior of the investor or the behavior of the entrepreneur himself. And that's where they have to start improving. How many thoughts they created and how many thoughts were bad? Which are the processes, what they cannot do? What are their competencies? Competencies are again made up of knowledge, skill, and traits. So what knowledges do they have? What skills they have? And what are the winning traits and what are the defeating traits? So what to measure at a startup depends a lot on their thought processes, rather than, the way a big corporate would do that. So critical elements of their business plan, the process which are important, the constraints and the challenges that they are facing, you need to measure aspects of these particular parameters and then try to control them over a period of time. I think this is the first installment of the answer.
Oh, brilliantly explained, Hitesh. And I think with this, I would want to, just put up a kind of a follow-through question. Probably will be coming in from Mani, but I'm just adding it for that. See, I think the beautiful part which you have explained is that you have talked about a SWOT analysis, which we very well talk about in management terms. But what you also spoke about is that how you can do that SWOT analysis with respect to the Six Sigma tools. Various tools you have explained like FMEA, success analysis, and things like that. So I think, Mani, if you have some specific questions on from the startup's perspective, on whatever Hitesh has said, I think it would be great.
Sorry, Mani, I'll just add one more thing. I'll come back to you. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll just share one experience with, a young entrepreneur, and he wanted to do a lot of things, but he says, I don't know where to start, and I have a fear of failure, and sometimes I am very confident, sometimes I feel very low, I don't know what to do, and la la la. So I told him, okay, try 4F principle: fail first, fail fast. You go and do things that you want to do and fail, and then you write down what you did, why you failed, and what are the skills that you are lacking. He tried that for 6 months, and he religiously tried that. He didn't earn any money out of this whole thing, but he tried himself a lot, and he came up with a very excellent chart. He says, I know where I am now, I know what I cannot do, and many things that I cannot do, I had a plan to do them. And he identified what are the good things that where I can win, and he changed his plan. He convinced his investors, and then he set up on the path. So he monitored his own confidence, his skills, and that was statistical. Let me tell you, he applied the things or the steps where he failed. He also learned what he could have done otherwise, and he came up as a more confident person. Thank you. Sorry, Mani.
No problem, Hitesh. I was just waiting to hear all the inputs that you're ready to share. Okay, my question is very simple. See, most of the times, what happens with the startup is like they start with the idea, they build the solution, they go ahead. And unfortunately, they get the sponsors at the end who are the funders. So when the funding process starts, when the investor starts asking what is that you're trying to achieve, that's when the problem looks very totally disconnected with the solution, and looks like suddenly they are lost. So how do startups or entrepreneurs can take this tools like this DMAC or this kind of tools and help themselves to define the problem clearly, then proceed to the solution, so that they can actually achieve the solution for what the problem which has been identified? Can you throw some views on this?
Yeah, so I'll share some real life example and try to be as brief. So one of the entrepreneur was coming out with a sort of service for the industry, and he had a dream. Now we told them, you write down everything about your dream. So he said, I will do this, I will do that, and he had like I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and a lot of I's over there. And then I said, okay, you do a small survey with people and talk to your prospects and see what they want. Well, he wrote, he talked to a couple of people with I helped them to make a small questionnaire and survey. And then he was sitting and he said, well, I want to do these things, but nobody wants that. People want exactly some different things. And my dream right now, I'll have to change my dream because I cannot change other people in the world. And that's where I told him, don't worry, what the customers want, you measure that. The intensity. If they want service, good service, measure it. Sometimes customers don't want good service. They just want to have a quick vada pav on the road, irrespective of, they want just a samosa, even if that oil is of 5 days old black oil, bas samosa khane ka hai. So sometimes they don't want good quality. Do they want time? Or they just want some output like that samosa? So what exactly does the customer want? And put an index to that, measure it on 1 to 10. Look at your service. What are you trying to offer? You are trying to offer some great quality service, but then you are looking at a market where that service will not have value. So your value system, what you want to make money out of it or build this organization, is not mapping with the value of your product as accepted by the customer. You are trying to offer idli vada and good South Indian thing in a North Indian market, which really does not work. So measure the attributes of your service, index them, use weighted average analysis and see, okay, this is the amount of value. Look at customers, what they want to do, and identify what are their values that they are looking out of it, measure it, define it, and see whether it maps. If it doesn't map, don't invest a single penny. Just invest your thoughts and go to the next plan. I think this is in brief that I can talk about it.
Yeah, thanks, Hitesh. I think we will come back to you. I think there's a lot to learn from these discussions, and we will definitely have a little more comfortable discussion once I will, request Karunesh to kind of, mention about Six Sigma, how he has been implementing, and especially in the international world, what he had been seeing, and how does it kind of, getting, I would say, adopted in those cultures.
Thanks, Anshu. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'll go back. I'll take a step back and talk about this. We heard from Teji, we heard from Hitesh some really good inputs in terms of the entire framework, how it works. I'm personally a certified master black belt. I did multiple different projects, and I was also the global head of Lean and Six Sigma for GE's shared services, which I implemented entirely, at the shared services of GE, which had almost like supporting almost 300,000 people at that point of time. So you can imagine the scale of that. And one of my biggest learning out of this whole journey of having spent many years doing HR work, and from HR moving into Lean Six Sigma, I came to a conclusion that the way this works is because GE had a way of being able to combine multiple different methodologies together. So Teji talked about an example of something called Career Accelerator Program, CAP. CAP was the people side of change that GE used very effectively. Lean and Six Sigma together was the process side of change. And there was another tool called Workout, which was all combined together in GE's ecosystem, which made it work very well. And I think that's a very important part of how people need to understand, because I've seen many companies trying to adapt to Lean Six Sigma and failing simply because they did not create the culture and the ecosystem to be able to support something like this. So to back to your question, Ansha, what I've seen is Lean Six Sigma is a fantastic methodology. It's a very, very solid methodology. It has a very good set of tools, which is a combination of Lean, combination of Six Sigma, statistical analysis, all coming together into that. I also spent, by the way, after my last few years of GE, I spent with GE working on a model called FastWorks, which was based on the concept of Lean Startup. Lean Startup is all about startups. It came from California. A guy called Eric Ries actually wrote a book on Lean Startup. And I had the fortunate moment of working directly with Eric Ries, thanks to GE. And then also I continued to associate with him because I was myself teaching Lean Startup. So what I realized is that there is a set of tools available to us. It could be Lean, it could be Six Sigma, it could be Lean Startup, it could be design thinking, it could be Agile. These are all methodologies or tools available to us. Now, let us take a step back and say, what is it that's most relevant for me? Hitesh talked about fail fast and learn fast, right? It's a very important part of the whole story. And I think what's important today is that when we talk DMAC as a process, the last phase control is about being able to stabilize a process that you have changed, right? My personal experience was that when I did DMAC project, it took me 3 months to do the project. By the time I came to conclusion state, the situation had already changed. I had to do another project now to be able to bring the level, take the bar up. So what are we talking about? We are talking about the most dynamic situation here. And that's the VUCA world that we live in today, where everything is changing. So when you reach the C stage of DMAC, things have already changed. And therefore, that C is all about being able to raise the bar and implement continuous improvement program there. So the cycle goes on. And if the cycle is going on, what are we talking about? You might have heard, many of you might have heard the old age process called PDCA, plan, do, check, act. And what I'm beginning to conclude is that whether it's PDCA, whether it's lean, whether it's Six Sigma, or whether it's lean startup, we are all talking about a cycle. In that cycle, you plan something and then you continue to implement something to improve as fast as possible. So let us go back to lean startup now and the minimum viable product that we were discussing just now. In the minimum viable product, what are we doing? We are trying to learn from our mistakes and reduce the cycle time of implementing something with the prototype, which is the cheapest possible, so that we are able to learn and not repeat the mistakes. So if I were to look back and say, what did I learn from all the things that I implemented globally? I started to believe that don't go with a tool, because when you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail. So if I go with a Six Sigma approach to everything, then all you're trying to do is to implement or force fit Six Sigma into everything possible. And that's what I really worry about. So when I came out of GE and 6 years back, I created my own company and I work with companies globally, very large companies like GE, but also I work with very simple startups, in India and in Thailand, Indonesia, and some of these countries, where we are talking about how do we help them get to do what they're doing much faster. And I created my own change methodology. I call it 4A methodology, which is very simple: align, apply, accelerate, and assimilate. And these 4 are very simple steps because I did not want to confuse people. The apply phase of that is using a lot of tools which I have taken from multiple different toolkits, including lean, including Six Sigma, including design thinking and lean startup, because I believe strongly that we should be agnostic of the tools that we are talking about here. We should be looking at, back to Teji's point, what is it that the customer needs? I don't want to go with an AK-47 and kill a mosquito. I need a tool which will apply to the need of the end customer. And if they are already using, let us say, a lot of data analytics, somebody who's doing in data science already, they don't need to do a lot of statistical analysis of lean and Six Sigma. They know that part very well. Then I need to just help them fix the right KPI or CTQ to make sure that they are not tracking the wrong thing. So I think my experience has been more in terms of practically applying some of these things. And I'm not a engineer, I'm not a statistician, but I was actually able to bring together what I call people, process, and culture together to be able to do change management. And I think that has worked very well in terms of conceptualizing the whole thing and bringing it all together. That's how I look at it.
Karunesh, I think brilliantly explained, and I loved your 4 A's. And I would really want to, connect with you offline on that, because that is something which we have also incorporated various methodologies. So I myself is a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt certified. and have deployed more than 1,000 projects now in various different corporates, and use those principles in my, almost like 5 startups which I have set up in the last 7 years. And what I have realized is that these small principles of Lean, Six Sigma, even PDCA cycle, which you mentioned, auditing, FMEA tools, all those tools are very well utilized, can be utilized even at a startup phase. So if a founder, and I think in our corporates also, we always talk about it has to be start from a top down. So from a founder perspective, I think I would, want to say that it is very, very important for people to kind of understand these concepts pretty well. And that is the reason in our Design Your Unicorn certification and mentoring program for startups, we have actually utilized most of those parameters or tools, basically taken from there, and would definitely want to connect with you offline on that, and we will share more about the Design Your Unicorn methodology. With this, I would want Mani to kind of give a little insight on the 5 stages which we have defined. So we have defined a belts level what he has, and Mani, if you have specific questions from an individual founder's perspective from the the Six Sigma knowledge per se.
Yeah, I definitely would like to ask a question to both Hitesh and Karunesh. See, basically the challenge is on applying Six Sigma for startups, on how much they have to take from it and how much they have to apply. Because there are 2 stages. Most of the time, startups or founders get rolled in with this kind of entire totality of the lean startup concept. The challenge is like, how do we apply the rightful mindset or thoughts to the minimum viability stage as well as the problem definition stage. So these are the 2 major things, because as we move one after the other, when we arrive at the business modeling phase, that's exactly we should be able to realize how fast and quick the idea can scale up, or is it sustainable. So keeping these 3 things in the backdrop, I would like to hear both of your views on that. If Teji is already there, I would also request her to share her views on these 3 topics. Thank you.
Karunesh, could you go first and talk about the question? I mean, answer the question which Mani has asked.
Sure. I think for me, it's very important for any founder to understand the concept. So when we are talking about DMAC, and when we are saying define, measure, analyze, control, improve and control, what it does is that it gives you a mindset. What I always say is that it changes the glass that you're wearing. DMAC process changes the glass. You are starting to suddenly look at things very differently. So when you start to look at this from a different lens, the definition of yours, and you remember when Teji was talking about the CTQ or the KPI, what she was saying is that you will suddenly start to, it's a revelation that the end customer is the child, not the dealer. So if child is your end customer, you may need to, create the product accordingly. Similarly, imagine that you are at creating your first MVP, but before creating the MVP also, you need to fix your metrics. What are you creating and why you are creating? In Lean Startup and many other people use something called a Lean Canvas. But in DMAC, we use something called define phase, where we fix the business issue, the problem statement, and then we fix the KPI broadly, and then we start to kind of fine tune that. When you know both these methodologies, suddenly you will find that you will be able to use the best of the both worlds. And for an entrepreneur, it's very important not to waste time on the wrong topics. And that's where I find that sometimes if you are going by the book and trying to use Six Sigma tools, a lot of things will look like a waste and it will be very confusing. Be practical about it. Apply the tools which really make sense. Simple tools like Fishbone can do wonders. You don't need to create a major, QFD analysis, quality function deployment, and you don't need to do a lot of scoring, because those things are good, but most of the entrepreneurs have a lot of things sitting here. You just need to help them to articulate that better. Don't get them into the jungle of statistics. It doesn't help. And that's where my difference of opinion is with a lot of people, that I want it to be practical. I want it to be crisp, because entrepreneurs are multitasking. They are doing a lot of things at the same time. So when they are, and I myself being an entrepreneur, I know that I'm doing everything. So I need to have time at my disposal. And Six Sigma and Lean talks about waste elimination. Let me eliminate waste from my own process and reduce that. That's what I'm looking for. That's my take.
No, absolutely right, Karunesh. See, from the individual perspective, and I think you brought up a very important point that, it's not only about statistics. It's not only about using complex tools. What it matters is that you understand, maybe a simple Pareto analysis sometimes can solve the entire problem of yours. I mean, we may not fishbone or these are mind mapping. These are actually all ingrained into as a design thinking process in Lean Six Sigma for a very long time. Design thinking, agile, all those have started coming in from these as a, add-ons to it. So I think, Karunesh, thanks for that same. And what, Hitesh, I would want to know from you is that from the tools perspective, uh, whatever the different tools which we use, and it is always, we confuse it that Six Sigma means lot of statistics. And if I don't know the statistics, I cannot run Six Sigma in my organization. Now, what is your views from that perspective, and how do you differentiate it from a methodology which can be applied to even a single person, startup, or a company vis-a-vis a large organization? And does it require large amount of statistics, or it does not? Hitesh, you're on mute.
I'll give you an answer which probably you are not looking for.
Okay.
One of the tools can be foresightedness for a young entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Another foresightedness is what I will be or what I want to be, instead of just a feeling of I want to do something. Right? Their personal vision and mission and their core values are key tools. Another tool is he should know his own winning formula, their strengths, because whether they know weaknesses or not, that's a different thing, but their strengths are very, very important. So Karunesh spoke about a word called VUCA, V-U-C-A. The entire world outside is VUCA. V is volatile, U is uncertain, C is complex, and A is ambiguous. All these four, if you see the turmoil in the external world, I mean, it was better before with this coronavirus. It has become much more double VUCA. And a lot of these things are volatile, they're ambiguous, they are complex, and there is uncertainty. In this scenario, what a young businessman or entrepreneur can do. Now, these types of foresightedness, knowing what is my winning formula, what are the constraints that I will face, and those are the key tools that first he should know to define the problem about how they want to go ahead. Or winning spirit and the failure spirit, because failure is just one step ahead before the winning event. And they need to be friends with failures, especially in the first few years, whether they like it or not. Now, coming to the question that you wanted, like the traditional answer. So you have different types of statistical tools, and you already discussed, I think my colleague Karunesh discussed basic tools, which are, fishbone or Pareto or pie chart, bar charts, and all those things. And there are some variance-based statistical tools like control charts or hypothesis testing, which are called a little advanced tools. where you have ANOVA, analysis of variance, or MANOVA, and all those things, which can be used later. So these are the techniques, I would say, not tools, and they can be useful depending upon a specific part of a problem and depending upon the measure. But these tools, I would say, would come later if we are talking in the context of the startups. Their key tools would be applying statistics comes a little later, but the D part, define, is they spend a couple of years in defining itself and they redefine it. And maybe Mani can share some of his experience because he spends more time on definition of what I want to do. That's very important. And in that definition, one of the other understanding is, one of the other tool is identifying voice of customer. What does a customer want? And I think we had enough examples, right from chocolates to samosas and everything. So you need to understand the market very well and the customer very well, and then look at what you can control and what you cannot control. And if you can find out ways about how to win over the uncontrollable part, I think that's where the victory lies. Controllable, we all can do it. Yeah. And that's where fail first, fail fast. That is my technique, which I normally tell you should fail a couple of times. Early success is really not good. You should fail a couple of times and then you shoot up straight into the orbit because you have enough ammunitions, you have enough techniques. The tools get developed when you fail. You don't have ready-made tools that by using this result will come. The tools are developed by yourself inside you when you fail. So I think that is called a development period, not only defining the problem or the product or the service, but defining yourself also.
Thank you, Hitesh. It was wonderful. I love the way you said make your own winning formula. So without that, a lot of things will not work anymore. And just to share one of my experience with startups is like, see, the biggest challenge in variance is in the ideation itself. Because I start with an idea, it could be seen as a product. But once I define my solution, it turns out to be a service. And when I take to the market, it's a mix of a product and a service. So the variation itself or the variance itself is in the ideation, which is where a lot of startups are struggling and trying to define the exact problem to arrive at the more specific solutions they could serve to their customers. So that's what my experience of dealing with a lot of startups these days. Thank you.
You're right, Mani. And I think what Hitesh has mentioned about is starting up from the define. That is the reason the design part at the start of it, and which Teji also mentioned about the DMA-DV, which is actually called as design for Six Sigma. So you design your product in such a manner that it actually runs as a Six Sigma process eventually. So from that perspective, design your unicorn is going to be a very unique methodology on which you have worked. And Mani, if you want to talk about the question which Sridevi is asking, do you want to ask that?
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just trying to go through the question.
Meanwhile, I'll just share the model of success that I have designed. Is a 7D model.
Yeah, please go ahead.
First D is design. First D is basically dream and desire. Okay, you should dream big and your desire should be very strong. That is the first D. Dream is something that you get at night. Desire is something that doesn't allow you to sleep. Second D is determination. Because many times we start up with something and then we find problems and we lose it. To keep the determination on, the third D is discipline. Every person or every successful person should have a discipline. The fourth one is direction. And that's where mentors come into picture. Okay, in what direction you want to go? The direction can be a geography or a market or a particular customer segment or a vertical. In which direction you want to go? The next D is decision making. And that's where most of the entrepreneurs lack, right type of support from their own circle, as well as sometimes from their guidance also, right? Decisions are very, very important, and that's why you should have a foresightedness. And then the next D is derive the resources. Whatever you want is there in the world. You should know how to get it. And so these are the things that you do it in your mind, in your on the paper and in your mind before you actually open the shop. Then comes design and deploy. So deployment is somewhere when you actually act. Deployment is somewhere when you apply Six Sigma or any of these methods. But the first 6 Ds, they bring out the character of a winner or what you want to be and what you want to do. Deploy is the last action item. Deploy is, yeah, thank you. Sorry, Mani, I took away your time.
No problem. No, that was pretty useful to all the listeners. You put it very well on what exactly has to be done even before I say my ideation is in throw and it's in progress. Thanks for that. Okay, I've got the hold of the question. The question was from Sridevi, who is on the call. And what she wants to know is like, does Lean and Six Sigma work in relevance for an event management company? How should they look in Six Sigma or Lean for event management company? Can you share some thoughts on it?
And especially what she mentions about is that the product keeps changing.
Keeps changing. Yeah.
And it will never be the same. So it's a rapidly changing environment. And how do you ensure putting up Lean and Six Sigma over there?
So Sridevi, you can give an example of an event that you conducted, so we can talk about that.
Sridevi, I've unmuted you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Hitesh. Okay, we organize birthday parties for kids. So a kid's birthday party, say it's a boy's birthday party, and we have done a dinosaur theme. And next we do another dinosaur theme birthday party. But again, the whole concept, the whole decor, everything changes. And sometimes we have to combine 2-3 teams together and build it. So that's how we have to keep changing the product.
Okay, so I was not prepared for a birthday party event, but let me try. I'll try applying the initial controls and see if we can get something.
Okay.
So let's say you have a lot of competition in your area about people doing the same business.
Yes.
And sometimes, if the birthday party you normally say, tell us 1 week before, but sometimes people get an idea of celebrating a birthday party a day before. Mm-hmm. So here, the CTQ, CTT, critical to time. That's the factor, right? You have the constraint area is what? Voice of customer is what? Speed. What is the constraint area? The time.
Okay.
So if you take like 5 such events where somebody wanted a quick party and another 25 cases where you had 1 week of, breathing time, right? And then you analyze that in a normal 7-day, intimation, how much time would you spend on each sub-process of organizing the party? Like, are you taking responsibility, inviting the kids and talking to the moms, or buying material or decorating the house? And these are the sub-processes that you would do. And if you have got 1 day, only 1 day, then that's where you apply that. How will you reduce the excellence comes over there, that how to best reduce the time for each sub process. Probably you might need more staff to invite the kids instead of you doing it alone, or you might need more vendors who can supply dinosaur or some other things for the kids faster, earlier, maybe nearby vendors rather than far off vendors. So each of these sub-processes you need to identify. So I was just giving you an example about time. You measure that. that where you, if at all, let's say a one-day party gets late, you'll measure that where we went wrong, what did not work, and which part failed. Or if it's more about happiness, but second parameter is happiness, where some people say, oh, we want to do so many things to generate more happiness for the kids in terms of number of games or the decor or the food or treatment to mummies along with them or other things. Now that's where you can also get deeper into the aspect and say, okay, what are the parameters required, each parameter, and measure them. That currently, if I am doing business, right, how much is the food quality that we ensure? Is it like 2 out of 10 or 8 out of 10? Or happiness for the kids in terms of games, how much do we measure? And then you can maximize it. And when you start maximizing it, you get more innovative thoughts about, I should do this or I should do more. And that's where the creative thoughts will start ringing in. So, well, these are the two examples, which one is with time, another is with happiness, third can be cost, which is very critical. So mummy can say that, well, we want to call 25 kids, but our budget is this much. And that's where, again, you have to look at your sub-processes, cost of each, and then try to find out how you can make it simple and enjoyable. Rather than, spend more on material, you may use a totally different method. Instead of buying things from outside, you may plan to make it yourself, or make the children do it, so that they make their own caps. Instead of buying the caps, they get happiness also, and they can make their own caps. It can be educative too. So a lot of value gets generated when we start thinking on these parameters and variables. Yeah.
So I think rightly said, Hitesh. And Sridevi, just to answer your question a little bit more detail, and I will give you 3 different examples out here. One is typically, if you remember, we were talking about tea making is also a process, right? Everything is a process. Now, the importance of learning Lean and Six Sigma is that we see everything as a process. If we can look through that very clearly from, and who defines that what kind of process we have to establish? It is the customer. How do you define, how do you ensure, or how do you figure out whether the process you are adopting is good enough to give a good experience or a customer delight on that eventual process? Now that is where you take the feedback. And unless you measure that feedback, and that is where the measure phase or measure part comes in as very handy, that you take basic feedback levels. Now, let's say you have followed up. So that is a tea making process. Now, in your tea making process, if you go to Chayos or some other brands, you will find 10 or 20 or 30 different type of teas. But they will also keep taking feedback which product or which variety is more likable by the customers. Now, whichever the product is more likable, they will try to enhance the sale of that and keep those products always in it, and define the process more and more into it. You would have seen going into, Starbucks, they will introduce new products. They will get you tasted. Okay, sir, taste it. And if they see how the sales is coming up, if the sales is increasing, it means the process by which they have, created that product is perfect, or they need to, kind of improvise it onto that. So you may need to change the quantity of the ginger when it comes to the tea. You may need to change the roll quality. You may need to change the, the salt or other things. Similarly, when it comes to your event management company, whenever you run a event, there is always a set process, and there would be some 5 or 6 steps you might be doing, or maybe 7 or 8 type of things you are doing. Maybe you are only arranging the birthday cakes. Maybe you are arranging only the host, or you are arranging that as well. The event, the place management is also your, kind of taken have. Decorations could be thing. Children return gifts could be another aspect. The magic shows. Now, these are what's the sub processes which Hitesh is mentioning about. So each aspect which you are doing is a sub process. Now, managing a place is also has 4 or 5 steps. You have to first of all search which are the places available nearby. The second step you have to take, you have to call them and figure out what is the cost, whether it is fitting into the cost budget, number of people, how many people do you need, whether they have the food facility or not. If you have to put up the magic show, do they have the kind of environment around that? Do you need what kind of decorations? Would they be able to manage the decorations or not? How will people welcome them? What will be the parking arrangements and things like that? Now these are the 7-8 steps which could be required in that entire sub process of one location finalization. Now once you know all of these things very clearly and documented it, whether you do it or you ask some of your staff to do it, it becomes practically standardized. So your job of doing things always on your own becomes very difficult. Otherwise, if you have defined those processes and explained that to your team, written down very clearly in a form of a standard operating procedure or a work instruction manual, and you give it to anybody, either in the form of videos recording or things like that, it becomes easier to translate the information. So these are the different ways by which you deploy onto that. Now the measure part comes in that, okay, once you start taking in the feedback and you do some changes in your process, maybe the step here and there, then what will happen? That suddenly you will see the change in the feedback, good, bad, or ugly. Basis on that, you will again change your process. So this is your 7 or 8 different type of things which can happen. So that is how the event part of it. The third part of it, which can go into a lot of metro development, which is happening, is a large segment. So metro is a big process, metro setup. Now what they do is, from a lean or a Six Sigma methodology point of view, they kind of do it parallel development of the large, the slabs, and they put it over there while they complete the construction of the pillars. So it becomes a complete lean process, or make it more variation less. So I think that's a little more off track question answer, but I think I've answered your question pretty well. Hope I have.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Hitesh, and thank you, Anshav.
So I think with this, Teji, I can see she's back. Teji, just a moment, I'll just unmute you. Yeah. Teji, do you want to talk about this particular point?
Yeah, I was actually waiting. So a very different question. I don't think I have heard a question for Six Sigma Lean on the creative side of services, which is very unique. But this is my view. Six Sigma Lean are more where you have to, you're having a repetition of processes. But I will give a different angle to the question that is being put. You can also look at, keeping the customer in mind, and what is the customer's expectation of an event. When I say customer's expectation here, not the parent also, while you take a feedback or the voice of the customer from the parent for the event, the most important is the child whose birthday party is being organized, and maybe some of his very close friends, of what would they expect out of that event, which will be a wow to them. I think if you take that as an input, which will then lead to a step for you in terms of brainstorming to design and carve out the event, it could be that it could turn out to be that you could do a very cost effective event based on the expectation that the child, the parent has voiced out. So there is an element of creativity you can bring in to still meet that event by creating a wow factor, because every child looks from an event that it should be a wow. It should be different from all the events that my friends have faced earlier. And that's what the child is looking for. So it will involve a lot of creativity, which is where I feel it will be a define, measure, analyze. Define is where you define the expectations of the customer, measure that what are the things you will do. Analyze is where you brainstorm to identify what are the events you want to put in place. And then you may want to mimic it in a small way before you actually have the event, to say, does that create a wow impact? So I think, though it is very on the floor where I'm trying to create a solution, I think you could use this approach. But yes, even though it is a different way of looking at the problem statement, you may still arrive at a very lean cost, but a high impacting event.
Very
Thank you.
well said, Teji. I think very nice
Thank you, Teji.
example. Nice. Shridevi, you want to say something?
No, I was just thanking her for
Oh,
giving such a good advice.
Yeah,
yeah.
no
So
problem. Welcome.
I think very brilliantly put up for all the startups. So I think Shridevi, thanks for asking that question also, because this question is there in front. It will be there in front of every founder or an entrepreneur who is probably just starting or even running their organization on a individual basis, maybe one or two people or two or three team members, and how Lean and Six Sigma can be implemented in their startup as well. So that will be good for them. So thanks for asking.
I just want to quote one more example. So while we talk about improvements, many times we are looking at very great technical solutions to bring uh, a wow effect to the customer. Okay. So I actually stated this as my observation of one of the improvements which the bank has done. And I still remember my VP saying, Teji, that is something only a Six Sigma black belt can see, that this is an improvement done to help the customer. So I'm sure many of you would have been an ICICI customer or are an ICICI bank customer, right? So if you see traditionally the checkbooks that we had, right? Look at your checkbooks, when you write, you have the first page, a summary page where you write the check number, the date, and where you have issued the check and the amount, right? So typically the old checkbooks, the way they were designed, you had to flip through the actual check to the summary page to write, to see the check number, right? If you see the checkbooks that were issued after, and this came out while I was doing the Six Sigma initiative in Patni Computers, this was around the period of 2001 or 2002. The ICICI checkbooks, if you see, has a small slit just near the check number, right? That's what is creating a simplified solution where the customer does not have to flip through the page to record the check number while he is on the summary page. He can see it right there. That's creating a very, wow, this is something which is good for me, or the bank has thought for me. It's a small act of just flipping a page, but it is a very small convenience or a comfort given to the customer. So that's how you can look at Six Sigma. It's a very different way of looking at the problem. And as I mentioned in my introduction, when I went through the training, it has transformed me to how to look at a problem statement actually. So I look at problem in a very different way now. Whenever any problem is, I'm faced with any problem or a challenge.
Yeah, thanks, Teji. I think we can go on and on, because these discussions are coming on to a very intellectual level and very required ones. We'll have to now conclude the show for today. I will definitely want to connect each of you. I think Hitesh, Teji, Karunesh has left for his other engagement, but we will connect back with him, and we would want to know more details about your experience and bring it out into the web series and the ebook and digital books which we are going to publish after this event. So we would definitely reach out to on that, and we'll need your support for the same. With this, yeah, TJ.
No, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So with this, I would want to thank all the speakers, Karunesh, Hitesh, and Teji, for spending wonderful time with us, and almost like 1.5 hours. More than that, I think you joined half an hour early as well. It's almost 2 hours that you have spent time with us, and thanks for that, and for being patient and answering all the questions. Uh, Apart from that, I would want to specifically thank my team, the entire Bringle team, Rajshri, who is who is running her own organization and still supporting this initiative in these tough times. Thanks, Rajshri, from bringing out all the best speakers from all across the globe. I would also like to thank Charu. Charu seems to be having a network issues today, so I couldn't find her. but she's the founder of womenlines.com magazine. It's a top 40 magazines online, across the globe. And she's been recently got an award as well. So Mani has been working out as mentor for couple of dozens of startups now, and he's the one who has designed the program Design Your Unicorn for Bringle, and working on that as an owner. Thanks Mani for your contribution and support and making this entire initiative a very meaningful initiative for startups. I would also want to thank Sharmila, who has been always been there to support from a lot of angles to manage this entire event. She's a co-founder and CEO of Bringle, also manages the CSR wing of Bringle Vardhan as managing director. So she has multiple jobs and hats with her managing on that. Thanks Sharmila for being there and giving a lot of inputs and thoughts on disability. Uh, I would also want to thank Simran, who's never visible, but she's always there supporting us back end from time to time, coordinating. And without her, I don't think so we would be able to, make this event so seamless event at this point in time. So thanks, Simran. Apart from that, I would also want to thank our, partners, collaborators, sponsors out here. Specifically, I would like to mention Radio Masti 24/7 Singapore, who are airing daily Pulse of Wisdom of our show on their, on the only Hindi speaking radio channel in Southeast Asia. And I would like to thank Renuka for that same to, for this wonderful collaboration. We have a community partner, Women Lines, which is owned by, who is founded by Charu. Solworks is Mani's organization. Social partner, impact partner is Vardhan, which is taken care by Sharmila. Gundam Foundation is focusing on gender neutrality, and thanks Rajshri for the same. Millennium Divas is our ecosystem partner from the women startups point of view. LIC Wealth is our financial partner. Real estate services partner is PPO Club. Community partner is Connected Experience, which has a clubbed members from Kasturi, Pooja, Charu, Yusuf, and Miss Shuchi. Miss Shuchi has been there always. Yusuf has been promoting us in various forums. Consulting partner PMC, and business networking partner is IC Expo. So with this, I would like thanks to all our partners, speakers, core teams on this, and look forward to see you all of you soon tomorrow again on our next topic. Tomorrow is digital transformation, digital disruptive technologies. If I'm not wrong,
Disruptive technology.
Yeah,
disruptive technologies. Okay, so till then, see you again, and thanks for being there. Keep bringing, keep growing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anshok Pulse of Wisdom will write and
Yeah,
send.
sorry. So very good, you reminded me. So that's the power of the team. Rajshri, if you can just talk about what you have captured as Pulse of Wisdom.
Yeah, so I won't take much time because I think this is an ocean of wisdom, not pearls. It's very, not so easy to capture, but
बूंद बूंद से सागर भरता है राजश्री.
yeah, बूंद बूंद से मोती भरते तो कितना अच्छा. So Teji, she talked about how, DMAC is a structured way of solving the problem. She also differentiated between the DMAC and DA and DV. Also, her GE example was amazing for us to know of, the practical experience that she had. Rather, the takeaway was that before making any changes or implementing any kind of a technology change, the change acceleration program, where the leadership is ready to implement. Myself being a HR professional for 28 years, I have experienced that if your leadership and people are not ready to accept any change, the implementation becomes a problem. So the change acceleration program is something which was a key aspect which I took. You gave very simple definitions of the entire concept, so it was easy for us to understand, and a lot of takeaways. Hitesh, I was writing my abbreviations, but I think finally see my papers. I was short of papers, so maybe one day I would like to sit with you and listen, a lot. You started with, customer has needs, wants and greed. So amazingly put. So we always talk about customer need, customer emotion, customer. So you talked about greed also. You went down to the real time facts of what customer wants. You also talked about backward integration, that how you would see yourself after 5 years. So start from now, and also clearly showcase the flow of DWAC methodology through your tools. You defined a lot of things with various applications that you have created on your own, and from the tools that you have defined. Um, I like something about the fail first and fail fast. I think this is thrice you talked about this, and this is something I think we all go through it, but we don't accept that I have failed. We go through the the negative side of it, that oh my god, I have failed, now what? But I think you have made it clear to everybody that this is one of the methodology that one has to go through first before even you go into the intense program. So which also kind of gives that it creates your own framework, rather than adopting any other framework before you start. So that is something which I love. And I was just writing about the example you talked about, this, these samosas, and what you want to give. This I have experienced, that I have done research on gender neutrality, and when I went out and started teaching, I realized that nobody knows about it except me. So rather than giving that knowledge, I have to integrate back into the HR system, which is more familiar to them than what I want to give, and the simplified everything into. And so that is what customer wants is important, whether it is less or more. I think you stressed a lot on that, and which is something. Sometimes because we know something, because I have a product, because you talked about these things, that what you are giving and what is asked, this gap is required to be checked constantly all the time, and you have to fill that gap. Karunesh Prasad, he had to go on another call. He gave a lot of GE examples, and he talked about that there are various methodologies are available. We have to see what is important, uh, and all the methodologies are allowing us to implement the desired results, but not necessarily that those methodologies are required for your organization. So he has created the bucket of multiple methodologies based on the client requirements, and he is using it. Also he talked about uh, la- use lesser of jargon, and more of simplify everything, and simplify at your side, then you will be able to simplify at the customer side, and a lot of clarity will come. So these are the pearls of wisdoms for today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rajshri. Ahmed, if you are there, I have seen one question coming from you. Do you want to answer it right now, or we can take it offline?
I think we can share the question, Ansha. You can
Sure.
share.
So
Can
I will
respond back
share
to
the number. I'll share
Yeah.
this separately.
Yeah.
And with this, I would thanks everyone again, and keep bringing, keep growing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.